Every minute someone dies from high blood pressure. Not from pain, not from warning signs, but from silence. Because high blood pressure doesn't shout, it whispers. It builds slowly, like a pressure cooker with no release valve. And by the time you feel it, it's already begun to damage your heart, your brain, your future. But here's what most people don't realize. You can stop it. You can reverse it. You can breathe easier again. Because no matter your age, no matter your numbers, it's never too late to lower your blood pressure. And today, I'll show you the one daily habit that could protect your heart, your memory, and maybe even save your life. We often imagine health threats as something we can feel, a pounding heart, a sharp pain, a dizzy spell. But what if the greatest danger you face is silent, invisible? That's high blood pressure. You can't see it, you can't hear it, and most of the time you won't even feel it. But inside your body it's like a slow burning fire, quietly damaging your arteries, overworking your heart, and starving your brain of blood and oxygen. It's one of the most common conditions in the world, and yet one of the least understood. Nearly 1 in 2 adults in the U.S. have it, and the majority have no obvious blood pressure symptoms at all. That's what makes it so dangerous. Imagine your arteries as rubber hoses. In a healthy body, they expand and contract smoothly with every heartbeat, absorbing pressure, adjusting with ease. But over time, with high blood pressure, those arteries stiffen, they harden, they lose their flexibility. And that pressure doesn't go away, it builds. It pushes against your heart, your brain, your kidneys, until something breaks. And when it does, it doesn't whisper anymore. High blood pressure triples your risk of a heart attack. It increases your chance of a stroke by 5 times. And it's a direct factor in at least 1/3 of all dementia cases. Think about that. It's not just your heart you're protecting, it's your memory, your independence, your very identity. Now, maybe you're thinking, but I feel fine. I'd know if something was wrong. That's exactly what makes this condition so deceptive. Because while you're walking, working, watching TV, your blood pressure may already be elevated. Maybe it started creeping up years ago. Maybe it's been rising after every processed meal, every stressful night, every skipped walk. You don't need to feel sick for damage to be happening. The real problem, most people don't check. They wait, they assume, and sometimes they wait too long. But not you, because you're here. And that means something powerful. It's never too late to lower your blood pressure. You're about to discover exactly what's causing your blood pressure to rise, and the truth might surprise you. Because for years we've been told to blame one thing above all else: salt. But what if that's only half the story? In the next section, we're diving into one of the most misunderstood myths in modern health and revealing what's really driving this silent killer from inside your kitchen. Stay with us. This is where everything starts to shift. For decades, we've been told the same thing. Watch your salt. Cut the salt. Salt causes high blood pressure. It's easy to believe. It sounds simple. And yes, salt plays a role. But it's only a piece of the puzzle. Here's what most people don't realize. Only about 10 to 20% of the salt you consume comes from your salt shaker. The other 80%? It's already hidden inside your food, especially in ultra-processed products. Not just chips and fast food, but things you might consider harmless, like canned soups, deli meats, frozen dinners, breads, sauces, even breakfast cereals. They're loaded with sodium. Not because your body needs it, but because the food industry depends on it. Salt preserves. Salt enhances flavor. And most importantly for manufacturers, salt makes you crave more. These foods are engineered to be hyperpalatable. That means they're designed to override your natural fullness signals. So you eat more and more and more. It's not just about willpower, it's about chemistry. Imagine your arteries as garden hoses. In a healthy body, they're soft and flexible, able to stretch and relax with each beat of your heart. But ultra-processed foods act like a slow poison. Over time, they turn those hoses into rigid metal pipes, unable to adapt, unable to protect your organs from the force inside. That's high blood pressure, relentless pressure with nowhere to go. Now here's the twist no one tells you. Only about 25% of people are truly salt sensitive. That means, for most people, reducing salt alone has very little effect on lowering blood pressure. You may cut salt, skip the shaker, and see no change at all. Why? Because the real problem isn't just how much sodium you eat, it's how little potassium you're getting. It's how much fiber is missing from your diet. It's the lack of plant diversity, of nutrients, of real whole foods. And it's not just about diet. It's about the daily habits that quietly shape your body from the inside out. This is why many people who eat processed food, even without adding extra salt, still develop high blood pressure over time. Because their bodies are inflamed, their arteries are stiff, their systems are overworked. And this isn't just theory. The science is clear. Populations that eat whole, minimally processed diets, rich in potassium and low in sodium, have dramatically lower rates of high blood pressure, heart disease, and stroke. So here's what this means for you. If you're trying to figure out how to lower blood pressure naturally at home, don't just look at the salt you add. Look at the food you buy. Read labels. Avoid ultra-processed meals. Fill your plate with color, greens, oranges, purples, plants, fiber, food that your great-grandmother would recognize. And yes, if you still love salt, here's a trick. Switch to potassium chloride, often sold as low-sodium salt. It tastes similar, but supports heart health instead of harming it. Clinical studies show it can lower blood pressure 3 to 4% without you even noticing the change in flavor. Is it a silver bullet? No. But when combined with other changes, it's a powerful step forward. Because here's what matters most. It's not just about one ingredient. It's about the pattern of how you eat every day. And the good news is, you can change that pattern. Even if you've been eating poorly for years, even if your blood pressure has been rising slowly over time, it's never too late to lower your blood pressure. In the next section, I'll show you exactly how to take control, starting with a device that costs less than $30 and could literally save your life. You don't have to guess anymore. You don't have to wonder if you're okay. You'll be able to see the truth every single week. Let's talk about how to check your blood pressure at home, the right way, because knowledge is power, and this is where your comeback begins. Here's a powerful truth most people never hear. You don't need to wait for a doctor to tell you your blood pressure is high. You can know it for yourself, right now, at home, in just 5 minutes. Because in this fight for your heart, your brain, your life, knowing your numbers is everything. Imagine trying to drive across the country without a speedometer. Would you really feel safe? That's exactly what it's like living your life without tracking your blood pressure. You can't rely on symptoms, because the most dangerous thing about high blood pressure is that it often has no symptoms at all. That's why they call it the silent killer. But the solution? It's simple, affordable, and empowering. You can buy a digital blood pressure monitor for under $30. Keep it in your drawer. Use it once a week. And suddenly, you've taken control. Here's how to do it right. Find a quiet spot. Sit comfortably. Rest your arm on a table at heart level. Feet flat on the floor, back supported. Breathe deeply. Wait 5 minutes. Then take 3 readings, 1 minute apart. Toss out the first. It's often high from movement or anxiety. Average the second and third. That's your true number. If it's below 120/80, you're in a good place. Between 120 and 129 systolic, you're elevated. At or above 130/80, that's high, and it's time to act. But don't panic. Lifestyle changes for high blood pressure can make a dramatic difference, especially when you catch the problem early. And you just did. You're not waiting for the next doctor's appointment. You're not hoping for luck. You're choosing clarity, choosing action. You're choosing life, because it's never too late to lower your blood pressure. And now that you've got the knowledge, it's time for the next step: nourishment. In the next section, we're diving deep into the most powerful mineral your heart is probably missing. It's found in leafy greens, bright fruits, and humble vegetables. And it could be the secret weapon you need to start healing from the inside out. Let's talk about potassium, what it does, where to get it, and how it could change everything. Now that you've measured your blood pressure, now that you know where you stand, the question becomes, what can I do about it? And here's where the real healing begins, because one of the most overlooked ways to lower blood pressure naturally at home isn't a pill. It isn't even about removing something from your diet. It's about adding something back in. Something your body desperately needs. Something it uses to relax your blood vessels, balance fluids, and help your kidneys flush out excess sodium. That something is potassium. If sodium is the gas pedal for high blood pressure, potassium is the brake. And right now, most people are flying downhill fast, without enough brake to slow them down. You see, the modern Western diet is out of balance. Too much salt, too little potassium. That imbalance is one of the biggest drivers of high blood pressure worldwide. But it's not your fault. Most people don't even realize they're potassium deficient. Why? Because potassium doesn't come from packages. It comes from plants, fruits, vegetables, legumes, real food, grown in soil, full of fiber, minerals, and life. Let's make this practical. Here are some of the best potassium-rich foods to start incorporating right away. Leafy greens, like spinach, kale, and Swiss chard. Sweet potatoes, packed with flavor and nutrients. Avocados, protein, fiber, beetroot, which we'll talk more about soon. Cantaloupe and oranges, sweet and hydrating options, if you tolerate dairy well. You don't have to eat all of these every day, but aim for variety. Your blood pressure doesn't need a superfood. It needs a super pattern, a rhythm of real nourishment every single day. And if you're still adding salt at the table, here's a simple switch. Try potassium chloride instead of regular table salt. It's often labeled low salt or new salt. It gives you a salty taste with far less sodium and a helpful boost of potassium. Clinical studies show that switching to potassium salt can reduce blood pressure more than cutting salt alone. It's a small change with a big payoff. Now let's pause and address a common fear. Isn't too much potassium dangerous? For people with severe kidney disease, yes, too much potassium can be a concern. But for most healthy adults, especially those eating mostly processed foods, you're far more likely to be getting too little than too much. Still, if you're unsure, check with your doctor. Especially if you're already on blood pressure medication. That's part of being proactive, not passive. Because this is your health, your future, your story. And here's the bigger truth. The more potassium-rich foods you eat, the less room there is for the blood pressure-raising processed ones. It's not about restriction, It's about replacement. You're not giving something up, you're giving your body back what it's been missing. This shift alone, eating more whole plant-rich meals, can dramatically lower blood pressure in just weeks. You might not see it, you might not feel it, but your arteries will, your heart will, your brain will. And over time, you'll start to feel different, lighter, clearer, stronger. This isn't just a way to reduce risk, it's a way to reclaim life. Because it's never too late to lower your blood pressure. And we're just getting started. In the next section, we'll talk about a powerful, natural drink that's been proven to lower blood pressure more than salt restriction. 3 times more, in fact. It's vibrant, it's earthy, and it could be one of your simplest tools in this journey. Let's talk about beetroot juice, how it works, why it works, and how to easily make it part of your week. You don't want to miss this. Let's talk about a humble root that's turning heads in medical journals. It's not exotic, it's not expensive. But for your blood vessels, it might as well be gold. We're talking about beetroot juice, a deep red, earthy drink that could change your relationship with blood pressure forever. It might sound too simple, too strange, but the science is hard to ignore. Beets are rich in something called dietary nitrates. When you consume them, your body converts those nitrates into nitric oxide, a compound that tells your blood vessels to relax, open up, and let blood flow freely. Less resistance, less pressure, more oxygen reaching your brain, your heart, your muscles. In one clinical study, people who drank just 1 cup of beetroot juice per day saw their blood pressure drop significantly within hours, and that effect lasted for days. In fact, the reduction was greater than what's typically seen in low-sodium diets. Let that sink in. A glass of juice, outperforming decades of dietary advice. No wonder researchers are calling beetroot nature's blood pressure drug. But unlike a drug, it has no harsh side effects, no dry mouth, no dizziness, no fatigue. Just a glass of vibrant, living color that supports your heart and brain naturally. And here's the best part. You don't need to juice it yourself. You can find beetroot juice at most health stores, online, or even in powdered form. Just make sure it's 100% beet, with no added sugar or preservatives. Don't like the taste? Mix it with a splash of orange or carrot juice to smooth out the earthiness. Start small. Just 4 to 8 ounces a day can make a big impact. Even roasted or steamed beets in your meals can help. It's not about perfection, it's about pattern. A few glasses per week, a few salads, a few intentional choices. That's how you build lifestyle changes for high blood pressure that last. And if you're thinking, can one food really make that much difference? Remember this. It's not just about the beet. It's about what the beet replaces. It's about what it signals to your body and to your future. Because every time you reach for something that heals instead of harms, you're making a declaration. You're not a victim of your genetics. You're not trapped by your age. You are choosing change. You are saying, I'm not done yet. I still have years to live, people to love, stories to tell. It's never too late to lower your blood pressure. And beetroot juice? That's just one example of nature giving you the tools to do it. In the next section, we're shifting gears because food is powerful, but movement is the spark. You'll discover a 5-minute daily habit that can lower your blood pressure almost instantly, without needing to leave your house. It's simple. It's backed by science, and it could be the game changer your routine is missing. Stick with us. The next few minutes might just change how you breathe and how your heart beats. So far, we've talked about what you eat. Now let's talk about how you move. Because while food builds the foundation, Movement is the spark that sets change in motion. And no, you don't need a gym. You don't need to run marathons. You just need 5 minutes. Yes, really. Just 5 minutes a day can make a measurable difference in your blood pressure. Let's start with something incredibly simple. Wall sits. You've probably seen athletes do them, or maybe you remember them from school. But here's what you might not know. Wall sits are one of the most effective isometric exercises for lowering blood pressure. They work your largest muscles, your legs, and when done properly, they stimulate nitric oxide production, improve vascular function, and help regulate your nervous system. Here's how to do it. Find a wall. Stand with your back against it. Slide down until your thighs are parallel to the ground, like you're sitting on an invisible chair. Hold this position for 30 seconds to 1 minute. Rest. Then repeat 3 to 4 times. That's it. No equipment, no excuses. Just your body, your breath, and the will to change. Now, if wall sits feel like too much at first, don't worry. Start where you are. Even a slow walk around your home, a few leg raises while seated, or gentle stretching each morning can begin to shift your body in the right direction. Because here's the truth. Movement is medicine. And not just for your heart. It improves blood pressure symptoms like fatigue, poor sleep, and brain fog. It lowers cortisol, the stress hormone that tightens your arteries. It improves insulin sensitivity, one of the root causes of high blood pressure in the first place. Think of your blood vessels like garden hoses left out in the sun. Without movement, they become stiff, brittle, cracked. But when you move, even gently, you restore their flexibility. You teach your body how to relax again. You don't need perfection. You need consistency. A daily rhythm. A few minutes to say to yourself, this matters. I matter. And if you're still thinking, I'm too old for this, or it's too late for me, let me remind you, it's never too late to lower your blood pressure. In fact, studies show that seniors who adopt simple movement habits, even after age 70, can lower their systolic pressure by 10 to 15 points in a matter of weeks. That's not just a number, that's fewer pills, fewer dizzy spells, fewer nights lying awake, wondering if your heart is okay. So, whether it's wall sits, walking, gardening, dancing in your kitchen, find something that moves you. Then keep doing it. Let it be your new medicine, one that comes with no side effects, only strength. In the next section, we're going to connect the dots. You've learned how to eat differently. You've learned how to move. But what about stress? That quiet force that tightens your chest and shortens your breath. Well, it turns out that how you breathe may be the most powerful medicine of all. And we're about to show you a simple technique used by Navy SEALs, monks, and cardiologists that can lower your blood pressure in just 60 seconds. Ready to learn it? Let's keep going. You're doing great. Your body has a built-in brake system, and it's hidden in your breath. When stress hits, your blood pressure rises, your heart beats faster, your vessels tighten, your brain prepares for battle. It's called the fight or flight response. And while it once helped our ancestors outrun danger, today it's triggered by email alerts, traffic, bills, and fear. We stay on edge, and our blood pressure pays the price. But here's the secret. You can flip the switch from fight or flight to rest and restore. And all it takes is 60 seconds. Let me show you the 4-7-8 breathing technique. It's simple, it's powerful, and it's used by Navy SEALs, elite athletes, and heart patients worldwide to calm the body fast. Here's how it works. Inhale gently through your nose for 4 seconds. Hold your breath for 7 seconds. exhale slowly through your mouth for 8 seconds. Repeat this cycle 4 times. That's it. Just 1 minute, but the effect? Profound. This breathing rhythm activates your parasympathetic nervous system, the one that slows your heart rate, relaxes your blood vessels, and lowers blood pressure naturally. It also lowers cortisol, the hormone that keeps you in a constant state of alert. And it increases nitric oxide, the same miracle molecule we talked about with beets and wall sits. Except this time, you're making it with your breath. You can do it anytime, anywhere. In bed, in traffic, during a tough conversation. No equipment, no pills, just you, taking back control, one breath at a time. And the more you practice it, the better it works. With daily use, 4-7-8 breathing becomes a habitual reset button for your nervous system. Your body starts to remember how to feel safe, and your blood pressure follows. You might be thinking, can it really make a difference? Yes. Multiple studies show that controlled breathing, especially slow diaphragmatic breathing, can lower systolic blood pressure by 5 to 10 points in just a few weeks. Now imagine stacking that with the other changes you've learned today. You're eating potassium-rich foods, you're cutting back on ultra-processed salt bombs, you're moving your body, even just a few minutes a day. And now you're training your breath to become your medicine. Each one adds up, each one compounds, and together they create real transformation. Because this isn't about quick fixes, it's about quiet power, about giving your body the space to heal, and about remembering something too many people forget. It's never too late to lower your blood pressure. And now, as we move into the final part of this video, we're going to tie it all together. You've seen the problem, you've felt the urgency, you've discovered the tools. Now it's time to build your plan. Stick with us, because in the next few minutes, we'll give you the exact steps to take starting today. No confusion, no guesswork, just clarity, confidence, and the beginning of a new story. Let's finish this strong. Let's take a breath and reflect on how far you've come in just the last few minutes. You started this video with questions, maybe even with fear. Maybe you were overwhelmed by rising numbers, strange symptoms, or the pressure to make drastic changes you weren't sure how to begin. But now, look at what you've learned. You've uncovered the silent nature of high blood pressure and why symptoms can be so misleading. You've seen how processed foods and salt-laden convenience meals quietly fuel the fire. You've learned that potassium, not just sodium, holds the real key to balance. That beetroot juice, a simple drink from the earth, can relax your arteries better than most diets. That 5-minute wall sits and 60-second breathing can restore peace to your system faster than you thought possible. And above all, you've seen that you don't need to wait for someone else to fix this for you. You have power, you have tools, and you have time. Because it's never too late to lower your blood pressure. You don't need perfection. You don't need to overhaul your life in one night. You just need momentum. So here's a clear and simple plan to get started today. Step 1. Buy a home blood pressure monitor. Track your numbers once a week, same day, same time. Write them down. Awareness is step 1 to reclaiming your health. Step 2. Add at least 2 potassium-rich foods to your plate daily. Spinach, sweet potatoes, beans, bananas, avocado. Pick 2. Rotate them. Enjoy them. Let food be your therapy. Step 3. Cut back on ultra-processed foods. Read your labels. Avoid items with more than 5 ingredients, or that contain sodium over 300 milligrams per serving. Swap frozen dinners for simple, home-cooked meals. Even 2 to 3 times per week can make a difference. Step 4. Do 5 minutes of movement per day. Try wall sits, or walk after dinner, or stretch in the morning. Move how you can. Just don't stop moving. Step 5. Practice 4-7-8 breathing once a day. Start with bedtime. Calm your mind. Reset your nervous system. You'll sleep better, feel better, and your heart will thank you. That's it. 5 small steps. Each one simple. Each one doable. Each one building the foundation for lifelong change. Because here's the truth most people never hear. Lowering your blood pressure isn't just about numbers. It's about freedom. It's about energy, clarity, and peace. It's about waking up without fear. It's about showing up for your family, for your future, and for yourself. So if this video spoke to you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone you love, a friend, a sibling, a spouse. Because chances are, they need this message just as much as you did. And leave us a comment below. What's one change you're going to start today? Let us, and this growing community, cheer you on. If you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more heart-healthy guidance tailored for you. This is not the end of your story. This is your comeback, your fresh start, and your reminder that you are not too old, too late, or too far gone to feel better again. Because let me say it one last time, it's never too late to lower your blood pressure. And you just proved that by watching them this far. We're proud of you, we're here for you, and we'll see you in the next video. Until then, breathe deep, move gently, eat with love, and live fully. You've got this.